Welcome to Sheth Marketing Academy. This lecture is on how technology shapes marketing. Technology has always had influence on marketing function, but we have never taken the journey in very specific ways technology impacts what we traditionally call the 4 P's of marketing: the product, the distribution or place, the price, the promotion, as well as in fact other P's of marketing if you wanted to add. So let's start the journey. The title of the presentation is How Technology Will Shape Marketing, and that's because part of the presentation is looking into the future, but other part of the presentation actually is looking historically how technology has impacted. Before we go into technology, let's talk about the forces that shape markets in general, and then we'll come to technology in particular. One of the biggest forces that shapes markets that we have not really understood in marketing is public policy. Markets are not as free markets as we think, but the markets are equally influenced, shaped, transformed by public policy. As we know, healthcare in America, for example, or product labeling laws, for example, product safety laws, whatever they are. Second major factor that impacts marketing, obviously, or market shape of the markets, which is customers, competition, needs, wants, resources, is the economy. We have enough evidence about economic well-being of the nation impacting the markets. For example, the Great Recession of 2008, the Great Depression of 1929, the 1980s restructuring after the energy crisis. These are major economic shocks in the economy, all of these in the negative way. But we go back to the 60s in America and you had the boom years. It was incredible to see. So economy is the second major factor. The third factor, of course, is demographics. And we already have enough lectures on demographics, changing demographics, such as, for example, blurring role of men and women in terms of the household management. So today we have working women, for example, we have aging of the population. Any one of the 5-6 major demographic trends shapes the markets. And the last, and the one that I would like to focus in this lecture, is the technology. Let me give a broad perspective first and then get into all the specifics. Marketing historically without technology was highly local. All you had were local bazaars where the local producers came to the market and the local consumers bought and consumed the products. Technology added both time and place utility. In other words, I can make the product here, but it could be actually sold in market far away, or I could make the product, store the value of the product, which means from raw material to finished product, and I can sell it not today, but I can sell it a week later, a month later, etc., etc., the concept of inventory. In fact, historically, marketing as a discipline out of economics came as a value add beyond the factory, which means time and distance are the ultimate utility marketing provides, and technology has enabled marketing over time to do exactly that. Just to give you a quick synopsis and then we'll get into specifics. Obviously, the oldest infrastructure, technology infrastructure that had a huge influence on marketing in separating production from consumption was the shipping industry. Shipping industry is historical, but with the Industrial Revolution creating the engines, the steam engines, for example, you could now reach farther places away. That was no longer possible. So provided that distance utility far more than possible. Shipping, and next one primarily was the railroads. And these were organized for creating what I call product mobility. You could ship products from one place to the other. Come the 20th century, the last century, we invented the automobile, which created both product and personal mobility. The trucks took over the roles of, for example, railroads in many countries. And now today we have multimode transport where we have everything. In the second half of the 19th century, the aircraft came in. We knew how to fly long distances, both cargo. So companies like UPS, FedEx basically have a huge air cargo fleets. Some of the largest fleets in the world are owned not by airlines, but actually by shipping companies or air cargo companies. Now the next one is actually, it is the mobility of not products, which is shipping and railroads, not people, which is obviously automobile and aircraft, but now the mobility of information. So we are now building information highways, creating enormous mobility of information and transactions, and that's a massive impact which I will talk about in the second half of this lecture. So let's look at what are the advances in technologies from a market perspective or a marketing perspective. So I have divided the technology breakthroughs in terms of 4 major areas: production technologies, distribution technologies, commerce technologies, or it's called facilitation even, and consumption technologies. Let's take the production technologies. There are many things over time, especially from the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. It was all organized around mechanization, automation, to either displace human beings, but more likely there was a shortage of labor with the growth of Industrial Revolution, and therefore you needed machines to make humans do more productive work than what they could do by themselves. So we mechanized the textile mills, we mechanized the steel mills, etc. But I will take 3 technologies, quickly give you the summary of those, but get into their implications and impact on product and marketing function. The first major one, I believe, which has been transformative is the what is called the CAD/CAM technology, computer assisted, computer designed manufacturing. So computer assisted design, computer assisted manufacturing, this is a very recent revolution, only after the invention of computers, and therefore it is a 60s phenomenon. And obviously the CAD/CAM technology took off only in the 80s. Very expensive at one time, but today it is very routine. In fact, most drawings, whether those are architectural or factory designs, for example, are all done now strictly on computers. Computers therefore have had a major influence and transformation in our lives, more so than anything we have seen so far. Second concept that arose again more recently, surprisingly, has been the concept of flexible manufacturing. Manufacturing used to be rigid. In other words, you could only do one thing, but on a scale, rapidity. I can only make, for example, let's say the beverage cans, so I can only have an assembly line that only makes the Coca-Cola and Pepsi-Cola kinds of beverages on cans, or canned goods before that one, or I can make beer just in can factory. I cannot do anything. In fact, Campbell's Soup struggled for many years because their soup was primarily canned based technology. To go into microwavable products, packaging technology, it was not an easy job. Coca-Cola the same way, it was not an easy job to convert their plants that were designed for bottling purposes, primarily in glass bottles, to convert them into aluminum cans. It's a massive transformation, capital expenditures, expertise, etc. So flexible manufacturing says that I can, out of the same assembly line, can make multiple products, each one with equal cost efficiency. Second concept of flexible manufacturing, it is also called lean operations, is that I can do everything just in time. Third, I can actually in fact have economies of scale of producing one unit at the same cost as economies of scale of producing millions of units, which is a very radical thought in the manufacturing area, but this is mainstream now. Toyota, which wrote the book on lean operations with 4 processes like mass customization, quality assurance, just-in-time inventory, for example, and in flexibility in general, by and large, clearly has articulated that manufacturing has gone through a dramatic transformation, a revolution almost. And a third one that is happening now and is really a 21st century phenomenon is nanotechnology. We are able to embed intelligence into everything to a level almost like a cell structure in a human being, and therefore everything is smart. It is a very evolving technology, and nanotechnology, as it blends with or gets integrated or fusion somehow with biological sciences, which is another major change from industrial revolution, which was primarily founded on mechanics, physics and chemistry, is now all biological sciences. I'm not going to talk about that one because it's a lengthy lecture just on that topic. So these 3, how have they impacted us in marketing? They have primarily impacted, the way I have organized the lecture here is on product. So first of all, redefinition of quality. Today, solid state technology that came in electronics, which is a computer revolution, it's incredible. Products just never fail. Watches, think about that one, from mechanical watches to today's watches. I don't have to send them for repair anymore. It's very interesting. Either we throw them away because the cost of repair is more. Quality has gone to a level that was unimaginable in appliances, in automobiles, in television, any product category you can think about. And it is not limited to consumer products or consumer durables, but you can go up in the value chain and look at the components, industrial raw materials, anything you look at it. It also made products mass market affordable, a lot more so than ever before. As you know, America is the pioneer nation on affordability. This was the country that created affordable watches by Timex, affordable cameras by Kodak, as compared to the Europeans, where everything was meant only for the elite, very wealthy people. Average people couldn't even afford cameras, couldn't afford anything. Henry Ford Model T was designed around affordability so that every worker in the factory, think about feudal days where workers had no enjoyment of any product, any technology, but his dream was to make every worker in his own factory can afford a car, and Model T was priced $450 with the best quality in place. So this has provided enormous mass market affordability, as we have seen the dramatic reduction in computers today. From what used to be millions of dollars of computer installation in the 60s, mainframe computers, the same capability today, I can do it on a PC with maybe $500. Same thing operating software. Think about Microsoft software, such complicated, comprehensive software. I can have it on my PC for maybe $89, $90, something like that, or it is already built into my PC. Semiconductors the same way, how expensive they used to be versus how cheap they are. Memory chips the same way, it just goes on and on. So we have done that in cameras, we have done in cell phones, which is obviously the best story I can tell. It also generated large variety through the concept of mass customization, which I just touched. The idea was, and I watched this at Motorola factory in Florida, I think Melbourne, Florida, where from the same factory with quality and manufacturing transformation, they could produce variety that will be almost into millions. So you can have pagers by size, shape, color, guts, whatever combinations are, and come out with any variety that a customer wants, especially a retail customer or telephone operating services companies who offer paging services. Of course, pager as a business is gone because it's already built into our cell phones. but the same concept would be true for cell phones. Fashion, have you seen the variety today? Fragrances, enormous variety today. And of course, beverages. I'm absolutely amazed from Pepsi, Coca-Cola, and maybe 7-Up, which is citrus based, and Fanta, which is orange based. Today, the amount of variety of soft drinks I can buy in the supermarket is mind-boggling. And same thing is happening at the soda fountains, and therefore the quick service restaurants like McDonald's, for example. Today you can get through a vending machine, not vending machine, but the soda machines there, and it's all self-service more and more, maybe 200 varieties. It's mind-boggling as compared to 2 or 3 kinds of products you could ever get, large variety, mass customization. And the last one is that, as I mentioned, nanotechnology is making everything smart. It's incredible. Now we have smartphones rather than phones. We have smart cars rather than cars. In fact, the Secretary of Transportation announced recently that they are already experimenting in one city, I think it's in Detroit itself, where the cars will talk to each other and inform each other, not the broadcast media. We watch the traffic, remember? But the cars are now becoming smart enough to inform other cars if there is an accident ahead. Inform other cars if somebody is not driving right. So car to car or machine to machine communication is making cars very smart. And I have in my another lecture have gone into the details about what is called telematics, which is basically having cars becoming mobile base stations, and you can communicate everything, and the cars can communicate to my refrigerator while it is parked in the garage, and car can communicate to my PC while it is parked in my office space or in the factory, etc. So these boundaries that we used to have between business and home are totally blurring completely. And of course, we have smart roads. I don't have time to talk about it, but this is a major project I did at General Motors Tech Center, which is world-class research center, about how we can actually have roads move and the cars are stationary, just like you see at Disney World, where you have people movers. So you can slot the cars and the roads are very smart. So smart roads, smart grids, everything is now pretty much possible. Second major area has been the technology that has influenced the distribution aspect of marketing. The logistics, the inventory, the supply chain, however word you would like to use. And again, I have identified 3 key technologies among many, and the one that I was very fascinated in the 80s is the computer assisted logistics. I found fascinatingly American President Airline, one of the shipping companies, the CEO and the chairman in his office had a huge panel. The panel showed in real time where each one of the ships was, container cargo primarily, each container where it was, what merchandise in the container, would it be automobile parts or fashion clothing or whatever it is, and it was linked to the customer database. Now this is in the 80s, think about that one with mainframe computers. Today it is a given thing. So we have an enormous amount of computer assisted logistics where I as an individual consumer is informed by UPS or by FedEx or by any company that I buy like Amazon, and there are many more by the way, every retailer has it, where as soon as I place the order, my order is confirmed. They even tell me where the order is on the way, pretty much, which day I should expect the delivery. I mean, it's just real time now. That's computer assisted logistics. GPS. GPS has had more impact than what we have done the research in marketing. I think GPS transformed enormously the distribution marketing function, because now we can track by location where the technicians are, for example. We can track by location even on my smartphone pretty much where the technician is, how far he is apart. This used to be only possible for emergency services like 911 at one time in the dispatch centers pretty much. But today it is everybody's hands. I mean, I can track my colleagues where they are, for example, through GPS, if they have a location services opened up or programmed. And of course, Google has been a major transformer by having all the mapping of every street, etc. So I don't need to fumble and find out where the address is. I don't have to tell people the directions. It automatically comes on MapQuest or anything you think about, or Google Map. RFID, like nanotechnology, RFID is another major change, game changer, primarily for distribution, because now I can track every SKU, stock keeping unit. So when I make an assortment as a distributor, buying different products from different vendors, put them together and do the reassortment and break them into smaller lots for more retailers and then ultimately the consumers, inventory management, I can do all this stuff. And not only that, but it keeps track, surprisingly, about the pilferage, what is called the leakage in distribution, shoplifting, everything is tracked now. So RFID is the third major technology behind the scenes that is impacting. So how does this impact marketing? This will be mostly on the distribution side of the marketing. First of all, we have created enormous efficient market coverage. Think about it. At one time, if you went to buy a muffler for your automobile or brakes or anything, you went to a store and the guy says, for your automobile, I don't have a muffler in my inventory. Shop around. Today, with the computers, that franchisee, Midas muffler as one brand name, will already know another franchisee within a mile or less than that who has that muffler. And either you can go to that place or they can have the muffler delivered here almost on a real time. Automobile dealers do it all the time, but it is becoming mainstream inventory on a real time because the demand does not match the supply. You make therefore market coverage more efficient. I have been impressed with 1-800 Fresh Flowers. 1-800 Flowers company was incredible. When it came out, you couldn't believe you have all these mom and pop flower shops, and somebody organized them into a network. I mean, today it's given. Today we have all kinds of networks. But it was unthinkable again in the 80s, and they came out whereby if I want to order flowers, I order it online or by telephone in the early days, and automatically the flower is delivered by a local florist as a part of the network. And apparently it has been a very successful franchise of some sort, right? Today, do you know Christmas Day delivery? I mean, this was unthinkable when I came to America in the 60s, 61 or 51 years ago. Today, the shipping companies will promise and the retailers will promise that you can have the delivery on Christmas Day or on Christmas Eve for gifts. It's a big market. And of course, Amazon is a classic case of completely transforming how do you distribute books, for example, then the videos and now anything. Faster response, which is the second major thing. I have now speed up everything in my logistics. Online orders, online ticketing, remember? Ticketing, Ticketmaster came in the process. Replacement of inventory is online pretty much. In fact, if you go to major big box stores as they are called, such as a Walmart or a Home Depot, the real competency of those retailers is the back office real-time inventory management or a just-in-time supply function. Better surveillance and security, which I think is a very key one, especially with that RFID technology that I talked about. Our retail stores have a complete knowledge about what happens in pilferage. Shoplifting, unfortunately, most common shoplifting takes place by employees. Second most common is by certain categories of shoppers. I was very surprised when I learned from retail industry that there's a very predictable profile of who is a shoplifter as a customer, and it turns out to be, in America, white teenage girl. Isn't that interesting? We all have stereotypes about lower income people might be the shoplifters, for example, ethnic groups may be the shoplifters, but I was absolutely surprised when I got the data. So they have a complete tracking mechanism. just like we have now with the Transport Security Administration TSA at airports. Truck fleets, complete surveillance on the driver. I remember working on that project for McDonnell Douglas, which had a business on logistics side as a separate standalone business, and every truck driver was watched constantly about their behavior. And at one time, as you know, truck drivers will be given cash because they are on the road for a week or so, and unfortunately they spent the cash wrong way and got the company in trouble. So American Express stepped in. You don't have to have much cash except minimal, $15-20 or something. The truck stop where you have your fuel automatically will have a credit card. The hotel or the motel you stay, the very little cash transaction. It is absolutely mind-boggling when you understand and analyze that industry. So truck fleets have become pretty much automated now. The tracking, I mean, companies like UPS, FedEx, you can think about all of them again. And as I mentioned about American shipping, American President Line, the shipping company, is mind-boggling how far they have moved compared to what it used to be. The third area is the advances in commerce technologies or market transactions, the buyer, seller, the trading. The three major breakthrough technologies here have been the internet, intranet, and extranet. Intranet, of course, are within a community, usually a corporate community, where any information from outside is screened, gatekeeping takes place, and information within the corporation is not allowed to be accessed by non-authorized people. Extranet primarily means that in this community you are going beyond the enterprise and you are going into your supplier community, and of course with CRM now, customer relationship management platforms, you also authorize customers to enter your database for self-service, etc. That's what we do. And of course the internet is for the public highways. I mean, if you believe that railroads made a huge transformation, and if you believe that roads made huge transformation in our lives and in commerce and in marketing, internet is probably much bigger transformative information highway we have ever created. So we created product highways, people highways through automobile, and now of course we have created information highways, which is incredible in my mind. And surprisingly, internet so far is what I would call a dumb network. All it does is give you ID and access. That's it. It is like the old black telephone, remember? That only could allow you to do two things, a dumb terminal essentially, where you got a dial tone to call out and a ring for call that came in. There was nothing. Internet is almost, it's just a routing and identifying mechanism. But today I can go into Internet 2 and make it a smart internet. If we make smart phones, if we make smart roads, we can make smart internet. And there's a whole consortium that is going through. So to me, internet journey has just begun. On top of that, you see now so much of information out there available. So the question comes like library. Library without organization would be book stack in any order. So retrieval is very difficult. So Google to me is probably the biggest public library, bigger than Library of Congress, bigger than Amazon. It has figured out how to classify information into categories and then how to actually efficient search engine. So search engine technologies and Google architecture has made enormous difference behind the scenes than we have realized. Remember, this is Google is not the pioneer. Yahoo is supposed to be the pioneer. When the word Yahoo was created, we were all laughing at it. What kind of a name is Yahoo? It became common man's name. Google the same way became common man's name. Everybody knows Google. In fact, basically say, I want to do Google search, Google has become generic, very much in fact like Xerox became generic for duplicating xerography machines. And the next major evolution which is having an impact now is mobile internet, or everything on handheld devices, whether those are in fact telephones like smartphones, iPhone, or a counterpart like a Samsung and a BlackBerry, basically tablets as we call them. So what's its impact? The impact here is dramatic reductions in transaction costs. Remember, one of the big ways for markets not to be price driven was the transaction cost theory. Coase, which got the Nobel Prize, Oliver Williamson, who also got a Nobel Prize in expanding this theory about transaction cost economics. I think technology had more to do with reduction in transaction cost economics than anything that I can think about. It simply made markets more efficient, more transparent, and therefore boundaries created by space and time would go away. So the best place I can give as an example would be stock market trading. Today, I can do millions of stock market transactions at a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a cent. What was true only for treasury bonds at one time, Lehman Brothers before it collapsed, in the 2008 meltdown of financial institutions, I was told it did $65 trillion of transactions of treasury bonds. They were the largest treasury bond buyers and sellers as an intermediary, as a distributor. But today, I can buy my shares, unit of 5, unit of 2, unit of 10, unit of millions, almost online within a few seconds even. Online services the same way, all the way from online education now, for example, to online information, to online airline transactions, online hotel reservations, everything is online now. Second thing it did was to create a global reach. In fact, internet is a very rich medium because it can do alphanumeric, it can do voice, and it can do video. All forms of information can come through. But it is also having a global reach. In fact, eBay proved that a small retailer in Australia having one specific antique can be bought by another small customer, an individual customer in, for example, America, or vice versa. So today, once you put it on the internet, I have a global reach. I don't know who will discover me. Of course, this is more common now with YouTube. We have seen that thing, the YouTube phenomenon, where you put something on YouTube and we just don't know what happens. So global reach of news and information. eBay, I gave you that example. Lottery tickets, the same thing. If there are no government restrictions, if you offer a lottery in one geography, anybody in the world can pay for that lottery, buy a ticket. So lottery becomes not only local to regional, regional to national, but it is becoming a global industry out of nowhere. We have seen a lot of disintermediation of agency system and reintermediation, surprisingly. So the disintermediation has been travel agents, classic case. Reintermediation has been companies like Price.com or their competitors. Disintermediation would be the branch offices of the banks, very expensive way of doing things. Reintermediation would be online banking, such as HSBC Online, HSBC Direct, I think they call it, AIG Direct, for example, they call it. All those companies have come out with, I think General Motors, old GMAC has transformed into an Ally Bank, ALLY, which is an online banking, which means I don't know the customer. And customers don't know me except by reputation, by integrity, all the stuff comes in. Very rapid diffusion. This has been a remarkable change in commerce. We used to teach and study the diffusion of innovation of products, which will take a very slow cycle and then will have a takeoff if it succeeds. And then it basically plateaus, what is called the S-shaped curve. Today, it is all exponential. You either go like the great fireworks and immediately collapse, product fails, or you go through an exponential rise. So from the S-shaped curve, We are becoming more and more exponentially distributed diffusion, which therefore challenges the traditional theories of diffusion, which says that a handful of people who are opinion makers buy first and then they influence the rest, the masses. Today, the masses influence the opinion makers. And we have never thought from that perspective. I think it's very valuable to think through that. So we have seen this in cell phones. I mean, the life cycle of a model of a cell phone may be down to 2 months maybe. Apps, I mean, have you seen how many apps we have today? Apple on iPhone and iPad claims probably 200,000 apps out there. Anything in life we do as ordinary activity, now there is an app. If I want to walk, there is an app probably. If I want to jog, there is an app, for example. It's mind-boggling. I mean, I've seen routine, mundane stuff that we do having an application for that, just to make us much more efficient. And my favorite is video games. I mean, I have not seen the way video games sell. Movie industry had the traditional diffusion of innovation cycle. Certain screen companies, which is where you show the theaters, will be the premier. I remember the days when Radio City Music Hall in New York was the opinion maker. If you had a family film, you showed it there first, or into some specialty theaters. Created a buzz. It's like a Broadway plays, you did it in Broadway. If it became big, then you had a traveling, Broadway, basically actor and actresses. But have you seen the diffusion of video games? The day it is released, within 48 hours, a weekend, you get $500 million of sales. No blockbuster movie can ever produce that kind of a rapid sale. And it is online, which means it's not just my attention and awareness and my interest and my desire and my action and all the time delays. Time is compressed, space is liberated, interesting, mind-boggling change. So that is basically the third impact. The last area of technology shaping marketing, and I think is the ultimate frontier, is the impact on consumption. There are again several technologies, most of them definitely only in the last 25-30 years, where we see massive change post-purchase in actual usage and consumption of products, impacting daily lives of all consumer customers. But also same thing would be true about retailers who sell to them, and the suppliers, the vendors, and of course the component makers, raw materials, all the way. For the first time you see a completely end-to-end transparency, integration taking place, and this is mind-boggling, the future that I see around here. Interestingly, my colleague Raj Sisodia and I, who have co-authored many things, wrote an article called Automation of Consumption. And we imagine in the day when you wake up in the morning, how much everything is done automated. You have a personal agent, a PDS, that is called personal digital agent, who actually guides you through. It's like Siri in some fashion, as a new app that you see on iPhone or iPad. But from the time you wake up in the morning, the coffee is automatically brewed. All the things are lined up for you. You have personal butler, a personal cook. Everything is automated pretty much till you go to sleep. So we have taken a typical cycle of a consumer customer waking up, and this is a sort of a scenario we have built in that article, which as I go back and reread the article, I think we wrote more than 10-15 years ago, it is real. So automation of consumption is the next frontier in marketing that we need to watch. For example, I know at 3M company, they have come out with a chemical technology that can actually track the consumption of a product like milk or baking soda's freshness over time and tell you how it is aging. So I don't have to look at the freshness date every time I take my carton of milk or my juice or whatever has a perishable nature. Or I don't have to tell that the baking soda is not working anymore because of the smell in the refrigerator, it automatically guides you. And as I mentioned earlier, my refrigerator is constantly talking to my car. We already have in Japan a complete consortium for home networking, as it is called, which is incredible. So all of these are happening, mark my words, just like before, like the video cassette days or HD TV now. Japanese will be the lead nation and will come out with a standard and architecture of automation of consumption better than any other country in the world, and will become commonplace all over the world. Just like typical Japanese innovations, where they have taken home market, lot of cooperative venture, cooperation among competitors, cooperation with the government, and then coming out with the next generation of technology. And if you visit Japan and South Korea, you can see a lot more of this happening, especially with the use of the internet, broadband, and obviously mobile telephones. Smart toilet is one of those projects. With the aging of the Japanese population, Japanese don't age in nursing homes or in hospitals, but they age at home, and you have working adult children. Therefore, how do you manage their chronic diseases monitoring? It's a government-led project for public health essentially, and the 4 or 5 chronic diseases such as, for example, diabetes, such as, for example, arthritis, etc., can be all managed properly if you have a complete monitoring system. The project is called a smart toilet. So when you go to the bathroom, not only you do your morning duties, but it automatically takes your blood pressure, your temperature, typical monitoring that you do when you go to visit your physician, for example, sends out to national data, health center data, and everything is monitored properly. Okay, so that's really what is called the smart toilet project. The third area is, and one that we are experiencing, is social media. I mean, think about the change this has made in our lives as consumers, from Facebook, of course, to LinkedIn, to YouTube, or anything you can think about. I would not bore too much into this one because it is pretty much we are all experiencing, and actually we have no choice but to join them now. I mean, I can't believe how people want to share mundane things they do, like I'm walking and going out of my door and it's newsworthy. I'm going with my dog and my dog is doing things, that's newsworthy. I thought newsworthy was something much more interesting, important, political, foreign news in the world, like the old BBC radio news, which I loved, for example. Today, newsworthiness means daily activities, which is daily consumption of what we do, but shared with the world. Incredible. And getting comments on that, which is even more fascinating to me in my own personal life. But the last one that we are working is most interesting. A colleague of mine, Michael Solomon, who is, as you know, a brilliant scholar in consumer psychology. He has a great textbook in consumer behavior and in marketing. He and I have been talking, actually it's really his idea, called extended self. A classic paper written in consumer behavior by Russell Belk on extended self. How do you identify your identity self? And he came out with a theory. It is just not you, but your friends, your family, and your community. That is the definition of an extended self. So we are now writing a paper, we are almost finished, called Extending the Extended Self in the Digital World. Mind-boggling. People are now living in these virtual communities, which is their family, not their neighbors, not their friends even, surprisingly. These are all strangers coming together. But strangers have come together for many social events, social activism. India, for example, had a whole independence movement started by Mahatma Gandhi using non-violence as a platform, and millions of people who never knew each other joined because there was a common cause. As we also saw with the civil rights movement by Martin Luther King in America, and as we saw the same thing with Mandela in Africa, South Africa. It's mind-boggling how you can unite strangers. What we call crowd behavior in some fashion can happen, and especially I can extend myself into those communities without being physically near them. I have a time asymmetry I can have, and I have a distance asymmetry that I can have pretty much. So these are the technologies that are coming in the way. By the way, in the digital self, things like creating my own avatar, and my avatar is a reflection of who I am or who I want to be. It is not like admiring, for example, a movie star or admiring a sports athlete or admiring a political leader. It is me reflecting myself, and I can have my own avatar. People go to this, a second life, essentially. People go to farm life, where once they come home, they would like to go to another community, and they have their own cow in the farm life, milk their cow, take care of them, nurturing what they would do otherwise in the family. Incredible change technology is making, and I think we haven't seen anything as yet, is my view. So how does this impact the consumption side of marketing? Unfortunately, in marketing we have a lot less literature, because marketing got organized around transaction, buyer and seller. We have never understood that a buyer is also a user, or he or she is an agent for some other users, like children are the users and the family, of course, are the buyers. But buyer is also a payer. I have written in my another paper about the separation of these three roles. So here users become co-creators. Biggest change is users becoming co-producers, co-creators. And we have seen this thing, the American football, Super Bowl ads now are created ordinary citizens, because cameras are so inexpensive, good quality, very affordable, and they can come out with their own commercials for a product. And I think it is one of the snack companies that actually encourages that, entries that come in, they select some and then put it on the Super Bowl. Co-designing products, whether those are appliances, automobiles, and definitely fashion clothing. And of course, how much YouTube content comes in, and if you look at that content from my viewpoint, which is a consumer behavior approach, there is so much of content about what people are consuming, how they are consuming, how they are enjoying, how they are disliking. So users as co-creators is a big event, and we need to study that both as a practice and as a theory. I think these technologies have pretty much liberated the consumers being constrained by time and location. So we have made people not held hostage or in a prison by time and by location. Mobile payments. I can make payments anytime, anywhere, practically. In fact, can be even a global architecture eventually, once we have the regulatory system in place. We do have a PayPal type mechanism, but I'm talking about a mobile telephone operator offering you the opportunity, like credit cards was a major revolution, as you know, in the 60s with Visa and MasterCard, almost a universal card. I think we'll have a universal mobile payment system where all of the telephone carriers have shared a database, and therefore I am in Kenya, and Kenya already has this mobile payment called Paisa, e-Paisa, or whatever they call it in the internet world. And of course, as it becomes commonplace even among the let's say tribal communities and most illiterate people in the rural part of Kenya, it becomes now a global phenomenon. So mobile payments is what I'm watching, and mobile consumption. I mean, we do so much of consumption on the mobility platforms now, especially information, entertainment, communication, transactions, all the stuff we do. And there are certain products like the entertainment products that we consume also on mobile platforms, like a Netflix for the movies through Netflix gateway. It just goes on and on. Third one is instant feedback. I think this is a remarkable change where the consumer on the spot is able to provide feedback immediately. So feedback, which used to be more a market research phenomenon, customer satisfaction studies, asking people their opinions, paper, pencil, today The consumer is not waiting for marketer to say, please give me a feedback. They give a feedback, and the feedback is both positive and negative. So instant feedback, user experiences, reviews have become commonplace. I have seen my children who are in their 40s, and I have seen their colleagues constantly go for a review of a restaurant before they go to the restaurant. They don't look at the guide by the critics. Remember, we used to have a great people who knew how to judge a cuisine, and you'll have these food critics. You'll have the theater critics, you have the movie critics, right? Those people endorsed or gave some ratings. Today, consumers do all the stuff for you. A lot more credibility, surprisingly, in that category, because there's a peer-to-peer. And of course, Facebook gives you instant feedback, Twitter gives you instant feedback, etc. we talked about. The third area is personalized consumption. We thought mass consumption society was created in the American scene. We think in the 60s we did that thing. And we had lots of sociologists writing about mass market, mass consumption society and its sociological implications at the institution level, individual level. Today, it is all personalized consumption, because the cost of producing one is not that different than cost of producing 1,000. So given that, I can customize everything with affordability and accessibility. In advanced countries, you see more and more customized clothing now. Used to be you had to go to a tailor, and the tailor charged you lots of money to create clothing. Today, virtually I can design the color, fabric, etc., and they make it in the factory and ship it out. Within a week, I may get it even. Personalized banking is already here. And personalized hospitality is about to emerge, where some of the motels keep track of everything you do, especially more the luxury hotels like a Ritz-Carlton, Four Seasons, or the Taj hotels in India, keep track of your unique requirements, needs, preferences. And by the way, that is true also of the Oriental Hotel, for example, in Asia, Hong Kong based, which is all over the world now, that they keep track. And therefore, if you come back again as a guest, they have a complete understanding about what your preferences are, what your needs are. They don't have to ask you again and again. That's very interesting. And we already talked about extended self. That digital identity that we are creating, is creating things like the farm life, the avatar that I talked about. Notion of extended family. Extended family is strangers now. Nothing to do with the neighborhood, nothing to do with the kinship, but it's like a pen pal. Remember in the old days where you wrote letters to each other? When pen pal was such a slow thing, you will get a reply back after 2 weeks. This is like instant, everything. So, and those are the kind of extending myself into some other world. So what's happening to marketing in the process by technology? First of all, the fundamental change, especially with the information highways created, is that marketing that was locally location bound and time bound, pre-industrial revolution in the agriculture age, is becoming a lot more location free and time free. And that's going to have significant change. We have always taught and practiced about the traditional push-pull marketing. Do I push on the retailer to sell my products, especially in what is called consumer packaged goods industries, or FMCG, fast moving consumer goods? In the British Commonwealth, that's what they call it. And otherwise, we do the pull marketing, where we say, create a brand, promote the brand, consumers are made aware of the brand, so they come to the store. Typical debate, where do you spend your money? Push versus pull marketing, all mass. Today, what we see is more interactive marketing and lot more personalized interactive marketing, sort of a one-on-one marketing, or marketing of one in some fashion, or segmentation of one. That's the kind of a language we are using. But this is on a mobility platform, every place, anytime, anywhere, anyhow kind of a notion. So what is the impact likely to be going forward? So here are 6 things that I have identified. The first one is growth of online marketing. I think online marketing is going to grow probably 3 to 4 times faster than the traditional marketing. Everything. Online information, websites for example, online communication, interactivity, and online transactions. So quite a lot of this is getting automated end to end. So I think online marketing is the biggest one, and especially I'm more interested in on online retailing. There is a whole organization called Internet Retailer, gives you all the data, and it's incredible to see how much change has taken place, not just in consumer markets but B2B markets. B2B market is even more online, but we are so focused on the consumer that we ignore the industrial marketing, where most procurement is now pretty much online. Catalogs have all become online. Used to be product catalogs. Remember Sweets catalog, Thomas catalog? These were all catalogs that I remember using them in the classroom to teach. Today I don't have it. I can go to a website such as a large distributor, WW Grainger, Graybar, Ingram Micro, and I can get 500,000 stock keeping units information right on the web. So B2B marketing online is even a bigger phenomenon in my view. Hybrid retailing, which is the second thing. We have the brick and mortar and we have the clicks on the other side. Today it is converging. So you have what we call click and mortar in some fashion. You have both the physical as well as the virtual. My view is that retailing will go the same way as the pizza industry. Remember, in the pizza industry, you went there to dine. Then they had takeout orders. You didn't want to stay there Sunday, kids have to go sleep early, etc. So you ordered the pizza like Chinese food, and you went and picked up the pizza, brought it home. Then of course there was a massive change where they could do delivery at home. Remember, transformative thing. And today it's all three. Customers can have all the choice. They can come and dine in, or I can deliver, or they can come and pick up on their way wherever they are on Sunday evening, afternoon, and come home. Either way, all retailing will do the same thing. And there may not be too much price discrimination or differentiate different prices if you come and pick up in a retail store and do the window shopping, etc., feel, see, touch the product, or you buy online or they deliver. In fact, more and more free shipping is in place pretty much, as we know. Third one is user as a producer. This is like a co-creator concept, but in this case it's more than that. User is taking on the roles that employees did or agents did for the marketer. So self-ordering is pretty much here. Self-service is pretty much here. And co-creation, as we talked about, are the third platforms. I think self-ordering, self-service is much bigger than I realized. I remember in the 80s in the telephone industry, we had this debate. Without the telephone operators, who apparently were economically not feasible to sustain, so we came out with the TSPS technology, automatic call distribution centers, which would be a Nortel Cisco architecture like in call centers, and you had all these automated, and most of the calls will be pretty automated. Today even that's gone. There are no public telephones anymore at airports. There may be one telephone for some emergency access. All restaurants used to have their own telephones. Today nobody uses them. I watched where at the airports, very busy airports like Atlanta Airport or here in Chicago, for example, where people lean against the public telephone, but they're making calls with their cell phones. Isn't that interesting? So it's all self now. Today people don't make calls and talk to the operator. It is only in exceptional cases. Everything is pretty much self-done. Self-service phenomenon is a massive movement, and we need to understand its impact, because now consumer experience becomes much more important in the process. Consumer is not just a buyer, but he is actually a doer as a producer, and therefore we need to understand its impact. The fourth area, and my favorite, is what I call personalized 4 Ps of marketing. Marketing was organized for the mass markets. Then we invented the concepts of segmentation and targeting and positioning, all this stuff. Today, the same 4 P's, I can do it on a one-on-one basis. Product is personalized. Price will be personalized and negotiated as it happens in a B2B market by accounts, but I can do it with individual consumers. And therefore, within a family, price points may not be the same between the teenage daughter or the son versus the husband versus the wife versus the child, just goes on. I can do personalized advertising, and I have the economies of scale to advertise to individual consumer in his or her unique way. In fact, social media almost does that for you. But as marketers, we have not leveraged from that viewpoint to say, I am having a very personalized message as well as in fact a very personalized offering that I can make to you, Ms. Customer, Mr. Customer. Very important. I think it can be done. Economics are there. Same thing, sales promotions. It's almost like the Groupon coupons that came about, where I can target pretty much, and we have so much of consumer insight through data that I am able to pretty much have a predictive modeling I can do at the individual customer level. Personalized service the same way, personalized products as I mentioned, and negotiated personalized price. Fifth area is affinity everything. I think we are getting back into the world of affinity like the agriculture age, where you knew every neighbor in your town. Like the small towns even today, both in America as well as in Europe and even emerging economies where everybody knows everybody, population may be 500, 100, 1,000, 2,000. So who is born, who dies, all of their behavior, it's just everything is transparent. That's the notion of an affinity or a community of some sort. Today, I can do the same thing but on a global scale. Here are the typical things that are happening. You have consumption clubs now. Think about that one. People would congregate at the church. Today they congregate around consumption rituals. Isn't that fascinating? As marketers, we have not understood and actually used to amplify the consumption clubs, which is all customer experience aspects. Membership groups. We have seen again all kinds of memberships. I belong to every imaginable frequent flyer program of any airline, frequent guest program of any hotel. In fact, my cards, plastic cards I carry for those membership groups probably exceeds 40, 50 cards easily. And there are many more virtually on the internet. And I probably get maybe 50 to 60 separate newsletters, separate offerings. Every major retailer that I am a patron now sends me daily offerings, for example. So I have a membership group which is enormously much larger than what would have been possible when marketing was highly localized and very much a small town community. I think that's another major change. In the affinity everything marketing, you are creating value by association, not by engineering. So the product or the brand acquires value by association, as we did with, for example, movie stars. The oldest one has been Lux brand of soap for the facial complexion. And they always used movie stars on a global basis, different movie stars in different countries. And Lux brand still is surviving and revitalizing that platform where we got value by association. Otherwise, soap is a soap kind of a notion. Value by association has been done in industrial products, I know. Value by association now is happening through the affinity groups. Because I belong to that group, whatever that group is, I now have a value about the brand and the product which is beyond what the factory can manufacture. Maybe a little more on what we'll call the emotive side, the psychological acceptability of the product, belongingness, whatever word you would like to use. And this is happening in a big, big way although we have not done as much research so far. But value by association is different than value by engineering, and that's very key I wanted to point out. And of course, you have seen an enormous blog community. I mean, today I can gather more information through blog community than I can gather through newspapers. I can gather through the typical reporting agencies like AP, for example, or Reuters, as news gathering agencies for all of the newspapers, magazines, etc. And the last area is creating what I call glocal community. We are simultaneously remaining local and becoming global. So the glocal is both local and global at the same time. We now see global bazaar with trade restrictions going away from the GATT, G-A-T-T, moving to the World Trade Organization to create economic growth through trade rather than just GDP, creating regional groups such as the European Union or the NAFTA, bilateral free trade agreements. Today I can find anywhere in America products made from anywhere. But America is a free capitalist, so you think it might be just because of the free market economy, but virtually same thing is true in India, same thing is true in Kenya, same thing is true in Ghana, same thing is true anywhere in the world. As the restrictions go away, we become both local and global at the same time. So I call it a glocal bazaar, not a local bazaar, but a glocal bazaar. And we say the same thing about glocal social networks. I have my network of friends who live in the same community, essentially, go to the college together or we work together, but I also have friends all over the world at the same time. So the sixth area is glocal community, and the rise of glocal communities that we need to practice and research and understand what is the theory of a glocal community. So let me conclude this lecture. Since the Industrial Revolution, technology has had major impact on marketing, primarily by enhancing time and location utility or time and place utility for marketing. So when I want to sell a product in a very different, distinct market where nobody knows me, I need to have advertising dollars. I need to create awareness. I need to have a distributor, a retailer, which is all marketing, post-production, as we talked about. Breakthrough technologies such as CAD/CAM, nanotechnology, internet, and social media, I've chosen those 4 out of 12 or so as much more significant in the way they have improved production, distribution, commerce, and consumption. Location and time-bound marketing practices, which we still do. In fact, I have an academic paper which says that all of the marketing concepts I can organize around location-centric, which is all about retailing, advertising, surprisingly, time-centric, which is all about product life cycles, for example. I can summarize. The third one is a competition-centric, and the fourth one is customer-centric, are the 4 areas where I have identified all of marketing knowledge into those 4 buckets. But time and location-bound marketing practices will significantly get impacted as we look into the future, and especially by mobile technology, where the internet goes on mobile platforms. Online marketing and personalized 4Ps will become more and more prevalent, much more so than we have realized, and more so in emerging markets, which they will bypass the PC revolution and jump directly from the agriculture age or the mechanical age to absolutely the internet age. Thank you very much. I hope you have enjoyed this lecture.